What are dreams? Sigmund Freud tells us that dreams are fulfillments of wishes. In our waking life, we have wishes. Sometimes they're fulfilled, sometimes not. But in our dreams, our wishes are fulfilled. Every dream is a fulfillment of a wish. Freud provides an example of this. He says that if he eats a salty food before going to bed, he will inevitably dream about drinking water. Then he'll wake up and be thirsty. Freud tells a story of a woman who told Freud about one of her dreams, and in her dream, she had had her period. And Freud, in one of those moments when he seems clairvoyant, he says, "You're pregnant, aren't you?" And she says, "How did you know?" And Freud next said, "You don't want to have a baby right now. You want to enjoy a few more years of freedom, don't you?" And the woman said, "How did you know?" And Freud said, "Because dreams are fulfillments of wishes." Now, at this point, we can stop and say, "Oh, yeah, maybe some dreams, but you don't really mean that all dreams are fulfillments of wishes, do you?" And Freud responds by saying, "What, did I stutter? All dreams are fulfillments of wishes." And to provide an example of this, Freud shares one of his own dreams. Now, first, a little context. Freud had just heard that two of his friends had recommended that he become a professor at the local university. This news was unexpected. Freud had never really thought he had a chance of becoming a professor, the reason being that Freud was Jewish, and being a Jew in Austria did not have many benefits. Freud had two Jewish friends. He refers to them as R and M, and evidently because they too were Jewish, they had previously been turned down for professorships. Freud's dream contained a thought and an image. The thought was, "My friend R is my uncle. I have a great deal of affection for him." And Freud described the image as follows: "I saw before me his face, somewhat changed. I thought as though it had been drawn out lengthways. A yellow beard that surrounded it stood out especially clearly." So Freud woke up and he began to analyze this dream. Now, the thought, "R was my uncle." Freud thought about that, and what came to mind was his actual uncle, Uncle Joseph. Freud remembered hearing about Uncle Joseph from his father when Freud was younger, and his father had told him that Joseph had been a criminal, at one point got in trouble with the law, but his father explained that Joseph, he is not a bad man, just a simpleton. Freud now returns to his dream, and that idea that the dream seemed to be suggesting that his friend R is a simpleton. And Freud said, "Well, R's not a simpleton." But then he thought back to the dream, and in the dream, well, the image was kind of an image that looked like R, but it was also kind of an image that looked like Joseph. In other words, this was an act of condensation. And Freud concluded that, okay, I guess my dream is suggesting that R is a simpleton. Freud thought some more, and he thought, well, but unlike Joseph, R is not a criminal. But then he remembered hearing that in the past, R had somehow hit a boy with his bicycle and gotten into some legal trouble over it. So, I guess like Joseph, the dream was suggesting that R in some ways is a simpleton and a criminal. Freud then thought of his friend M, and he remembered once hearing that his friend M had also been in trouble with the law. There had been some allegations of impropriety between M and a woman. So Freud reasons that his dream is suggesting that M, too, is a criminal. The dream now was starting to make sense to Freud. Remember, Freud badly wanted to become a professor. And if he believed that his friends were denied professorships because they were Jewish, then Freud's own wish would be dashed. The reasoning here can be stated as follows. 1, R and M were denied professorships because they're Jewish. 2, I'm Jewish. Therefore, 3, I too will be denied a professorship. If, however, it was the case that R and M had been denied professorships for other reasons, that they were simpletons, that they were criminals, then there might be hope for Freud. This reasoning can be stated as follows. 1. R was denied a professorship because he's a simpleton and a criminal, and M was denied a professorship because he's a criminal. 2. I'm neither a simpleton nor a criminal. Therefore, 3. I might be offered a professorship. So here we see a wish. It was well disguised, but the wish is being fulfilled in the dream, Freud's wish of becoming a professor. Now, there was something in the dream that still didn't make sense, and that was the thought that Freud had a great deal of affection for R. See, Freud didn't really feel much affection for his uncle, and, well, he liked R well enough, but it would be a huge exaggeration to say he had a great deal of affection for him. Now, Freud made sense of this as follows. He concluded that by exaggerating his feelings, his unconscious had disguised the dream's true meaning, which was that R is a simpleton and a criminal. So on the one hand, the dream had expressed this wish, but on the other hand, the dream had made it difficult for Freud to understand this wish. Freud next provides what I think is just this brilliant example to elucidate what seems to be happening here. Imagine, he writes, there is a political writer and he wants to say things against those in authority. Now, this writer knows that if he writes clearly, his writings will be censored. And so to avoid the censorship, he decides to be crafty and disguise his message. For example, Freud says, imagine that he writes about a dispute between two mandarins in the Middle Kingdom. He's writing this fictional story, understanding that his more astute readers will get it, will get the message, will get that this fictional story, quote unquote, is really about the ruling authorities of the day. The same thing is happening in our dreams. So in our dreams, it seems as though we have two inner forces at work. One which expresses the wish, and the other which censors the message. It's as though the first force realizes that if it explicitly expresses the wish, the second force will censor it. And so to elude this censorship, the first force disguises the wish. And so in Freud's dream, one inner force wanted to express the wish that Freud had a chance to be named professor, while another inner force wanted to prevent the wish from being expressed. And the first force, in order to express the wish, engaged in dissimulation, expressing great affection for R, and in so doing, he was able, or it, I should say, was able to elude the censor. And why, you might ask, do we have an inner censor? Freud's answer is basically, we have an inner censor to protect us from information that would cause distress to our conscious mind. As Freud writes, everyone has wishes that he would prefer not to disclose to other people, and wishes that he will not admit even to himself. So, returning to Freud's dream, we see that although he wanted to be named professor, and although the fulfillment of this wish would have made him happy, thoughts that R was a simpleton and a criminal, and that M was a criminal, would have caused Freud some distress. He might have been sad to know that he thought of his friends that way. He might have felt guilty to know that he thought of his friends that way. So put differently, both forces seem to have Freud's best interest in mind. It's as though the first force is offering a gift that the force knows will make Freud happy, and the second force says, no, I appreciate your good intentions, but that gift is actually going to make Freud sad, so I'm sorry, you cannot deliver that gift. Now, personally, I think that Freud's claim that all dreams are fulfillments of wishes is going too far. But I don't want to get into that now. I think Freud has convincingly shown that at least many dreams contain wishes, And I think just as importantly, maybe more importantly, Freud has described, I think in a very persuasive manner, what is happening in our unconscious and why dreams are so dang confusing. I hope you're continuing to enjoy Freud's interpretation of dreams, and I will see you all next time. Shalom.